The story of my father's life is a story of innovation. From the very first days of coming with his family to Israel, everything he did was innovative and entrepreneurial, forward-looking with a lot of optimism. And you can actually observe four major stages in his life that had to deal with different kinds of innovation, technology, and entrepreneurship. The first one, of course, was building a nation and populating the land, which required a lot of creativity in building know-how and technologies in agriculture. In water technologies, Israel was a dry land, a refusing land, no water, and still you needed to provide for the newcomers and for the ones that lived in Israel as you build a nation. And his first years as a young man had to deal with being an entrepreneur, in settling a new kibbutz, in building a community, and in work on science and technology in order to be able to provide to the entire community in Israel. The second phase was all about building Israel defense industry, building strong defense capabilities to be able to survive as we build our nation. And again, science and technology and innovation were the core tools which he used, from Dimona to the Israeli aerospace industries, all the way to Iron Dome. The Israeli military defense is based on computers, on software, on brilliant minds in order to create the ability to sustain whatever threats the Middle East is proposing. The third step in his life was all about the economy. When my father became prime minister for the first time in the early 80s, he inherited an economy that was collapsing, 400% inflation rate, following a decade from the war of 1973. The whole ecosystem in Israel was falling apart, and he realized once again that if you don't build your economy on science, technology, and innovation, on the brain power as opposed to natural resources, you are doomed to fail. And he was one of the biggest promoters of what we know today as the startup nation, helping young people start companies, creating the right climate for innovation and entrepreneurship that emerged from the defense industry initially, and inviting global enterprises to change Israel, to bring with them the market, the know-how, and the connection to the global world. The fourth chapter was the chapter that merged into the Peres Center for Peace and Innovation, and it is all about transforming the Middle East region from an old world to a startup region. The story that we learned, the lessons that we learned in Israel, is that actually there are two main things that are driving our economy forward. One engine, we call it global enterprises. We have in Israel today 350 global enterprises which are constantly innovating. They employ Israeli engineers, they create innovation labs, they develop products, they build new ideas, creative ideas, they market products to the world, not only from the US or Europe, but also from Israel. And they are driving the innovation engine. 50% of our innovation comes from global enterprises. Companies such as Facebook, companies such as Apple, all the big 5 companies in the US economy today are technology companies. It's Amazon, it's Alphabet, it's Facebook, it's Microsoft, it's Apple, and all of them have major operations in Israel. For the first time in history, technology companies created the highest value for their shareholders in the United States. The 5 big companies are technology companies, not natural resources companies, not engineering companies, and not financial service companies. All of them are technology companies. So Apple has an R&D center in Israel that was set up for the first time outside of the United States. It was done in Israel. The same goes to the others. The other part of the story is the startup community in Israel. We have today 6,000 companies in Israel at various stages, at various technology sectors, helping the world going through the wave of digitization, transforming industries to digital industries, and now stepping forward not only in digitizing, but also in introducing artificial intelligence and machine learning and helping the world go through the fourth industrial revolution. These 6,000 companies receive about $6 billion worth of investment annually. It is the second part of our growth engine into the future. My father believed that today nations have an opportunity that humankind did not see before. And the opportunity is actually to build great nations, not on the expense of others. Instead of building armies and going to war to conquer more natural resources and cheap labor, all that is not needed because science and technology can provide replacement. If you need energy, you can harvest energy with technology. If you need clean water, you can clean water or desalinate water or purify them and use it. Cheap labor is going to be replaced by robots, by machines, by Internet of Things. So there is no reason to fight anymore in order to become great. That message is something that the Peres Center for Peace and Innovation has set as its prime target, to take the region into a new chapter, into a new future, by turning the Middle East region into the startup region. And how do you do that? In order to do it, basically you need to look at Israel as a case study, as a nation that is part of the Middle East region. Initially, many of us started to work with our own Arab community. 20% of the Israeli society consists of Israeli Arabs. They speak Arabic, they can travel in the region, they know a lot of people in the region. And just like we observed in the last 20 years, as America has been building the greatest infrastructure for internet, China has done the same, but for Chinese-speaking communities. And today the China-speaking market in the internet world is as big and sometimes even bigger than what we see in the United States. That is the opportunity that the Middle East have. We have in the Middle East 400 million people that live in the region in 22 countries. We have another 50 or 60 million people that live outside of the region. All of them speak the same language, although in different dialects and different cultures in different nations, but still they have a common denominator, which is the Arabic language. There is an opportunity for the Middle East to create a unified market around that language and help new companies and small companies expand their business through the network. It's a place where you can have opportunities for the young generation to start new businesses. We all know that today jobs are created around the world by new companies, not necessarily by the incumbent ones. They tap into innovation, and as a result you can see that all the global enterprises are moving to downtown in every city, where the young generation is following the creators and the artists to start new things. So today, the world is creating jobs through the young generation. And this is why we need to give an opportunity to the young generation in the Middle East. The Middle East is probably one of the most young or the youngest regions in the world. 60% of the people are below the age of 30. The average age is below 26. Unemployment is huge in many areas, especially when it comes to the young generation. In order to turn the Middle East into the startup region, we need to see movement from global enterprises. And many of them are doing it. Companies like Cisco, for example, companies like Google, companies like Facebook, they have presence in the Middle East. But that is not enough. We need more companies, we need more business opportunities, more opportunities for the young generation, more incubators, more innovation labs, a new horizon of opportunities for the young generation in the Middle East will be the best answer to extremism to poverty and to terrorism that we see coming out of the Middle East. It is the youngest region, probably the slowest growing region. Lots of people usually refrain from investing in such areas. People refrain from making investments in China 25 or 30 years ago. People refrain from making investments in Africa 20 years ago. People refrain from making investment in Turkey. But as time goes by, the world is expanding and connected more and more through networks. The world is moving very fast forward. We cannot allow today to leave any region and any person and any society behind, because at the end of the day, we will all be accountable. And as my father used to say, terrorism is not something that is left for the Middle East. Terrorism will be globalized, and he said it 20 years ago. And nothing will protect anyone, not oceans, not mountains, because at the end of the day, everything in our world is being globalized. And as it is globalized, more and more responsibility is handed over to the shoulders of global enterprises, entrepreneurs, innovators. And at the end of the day, it is for us, the investors, the business community, the entrepreneurial community, to connect and reach out beyond borders to all the regions in the world, including the Middle East, and help the Middle East transition itself from a poor region to a startup region. Thank you very much.